With my special guest now, I'm joined by Johnny from The Horn. Good morning to you, Johnny. How are we doing?
Morning, Dan. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm feeling good. Went to a gig last night, and feeling fresh.
Great to hear as well. Because I know some musicians aren't morning people, are they? Because they're working obviously at nights and everything, and they have to get up in the morning with their busy schedule.
Yeah, I've discovered mushroom coffee, which helps. It's a very pretentious sort of East London thing, but it's I think it's spreading, and it's good. It's good. I
Awesome.
recommend it to everybody. Yeah,
So The Horn, Johnny,
yeah,
you're say you're the main man, but who else are in the band as well?
yeah. There's Nick True on bass. There's Danny Monk on lead guitar, and there's Ed Cox on keys, and Alex Morse on drums. And yeah, there's some founding members and some session. We sort of started as a session band, but it kind of blossomed into something else.
So a quintessentially a quintet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It
and
is
ha-
a quintet.
and working with five people, how do you all gel as a group?
It's a really good question. I think probably on tour is when you kind of tend to gel with your band the most because once you've settled into the tour, you kind of it becomes a gaggle of silly jokes. And when you're in the studio rehearsing, you sort of rehearsing the same songs over and over and over again, and then playing kind of like interstitial, fun little numbers in between those
Mm,
songs. It's when you start discovering the personality of the group a little bit. And yeah, so you put five men in a studio for 8 hours, they're going to come out
mm,
bonded in some way.
yeah. So we'll mention like touring and gigging a little while in a short while. Just want to touch on your new singles as well. We
Yeah,
have "Addicted to Love," and also
yeah,
your last one was "People Like Us" as well.
that's right. Yeah,
And they have kind of like an indie feel to it, with like the guitars and that kind of Britpop sound. Was that the sound you're trying to capture the audience to listen to?
yeah. Thanks for asking. That's a great question. I think initially, sort of Danny and I, who had founded another band a way back, and then it's Nick's band really, The Horn, and Nick founded it with me and Danny, and then we got Alex and Ed along afterwards, and we all three of us at the time in the studio, we were kind of talking. Debating about the Beatles albums. We love David Bowie. Danny and I love Father John Misty, who's amazing. He was the drummer of Fleet Fox's Seattle band. We referenced a lot of Tame Impala in the studio, so that's kind of why you've got some of that kind of dreamy psychedelic
Mm,
guitar effects. But Danny also loves the Strokes, so you get that kind of more edgy guitar coming in.
mm,
So yeah, it's a nice sort of blend, I think, of our production choices,
mm.
and from listening to a lot of psychedelic rock and indie rock in the last 20 years.
Great. That kind of late 60s, early 70s sound, maybe influences in there.
Yeah, that's certainly present on Inner Speaker in Kevin Parker's first Tame Impala album. A lot of phase on his drums, which are quite fun. I really enjoy phase and chorus modulation effects. And so does Danny. And I think Nick sort of quickly fell in with that and enjoyed it and went, yes, let's try and make this song sound like that, like the last. Remember the thing we did on that guitar? Can we do that again on this record? So it starts to become, there's some continuity
Mm.
in it.
That's nice
Yeah.
to find one sound. A lot of musicians struggle to find that category, don't they? Their kind of niche, what they
Yeah,
want to do.
it's also about parameter. That's a very good point. I think it's also about parameters. Danny will often, I'll say, "Can I have a bit more reverb on my voice?" And that's probably the most requested thing that and Daniel at the desk will just go, "Yes," and just lift put the fader
Yeah,
up.
the good old
Uh,
tweak.
yeah, it's something about what you don't do as
Mm.
well. I think that can define a sound like that.
Yeah, so on People Like Us, the vocals, was there like an effect on that to make just the sound a bit more kind of grittier, dirtier?
Yeah, on the vocals, that was with our amazing producer Danton Supple in
Mm.
Rack. I'm not actually sure what he did to that. I would hear those vocals as quite smooth, but towards the end, there's some layering. Uh, if you listen to Passion, he's Danny's put some initial kind of grit
Yeah.
distortion on my voice, so that's an example of it being a bit dirtier on the
Mm.
on the first single that we put out. I'd probably describe the vocals on People Like Us as smooth.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think obviously when you use mic technique and start to sing using more of your body, you can activate a certain texture in the
Yeah.
microphone, and that then starts to become, and we know what that sounds like. So yeah, I definitely played around
Mm.
with mic technique with these ones and always learning. always playing.
And you mentioned other songs there. Do you will this lead up to an album at all?
Yes, our album just went out the other day, and it's with the sort of leading single, "Addicted to Love," and that's yeah. So that's we've dropped our album. There was a lot of chat between the label and the band. We're like, when are we going to release it? Maybe next year. But yeah, we decided to sort of go for a quick drop
Mm.
recently. So it's out there. You can listen to it on Spotify
Of
and
course,
or
yes.
your preferred station.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Going to just ask you about your social medias in a couple of minutes time.
Mm.
I just wanted to ask. It um, really is quite kind of a funny question, but "Addicted to Love," of course, Robert Palmer had a hit with that.
Yeah.
Did he ever cross your mind when you were writing and recording this, or was it just coincidence?
It's coincidence, totally. Yeah, you might as well face it. Addicted to Love. It's funny because I was at Nick's flat and he was just kind of going, um, and I think I actually went for a pee. I went to the toilet and came back, and often ideas can just form when you're
Mm.
having a shower or in the bathroom, sort of relaxing, and you just kind of you're just like or walking, often walking. And I just we came up with these lyrics later on, sort of, our brains love on when we die, and I'm addicted to love. So I then afterwards was like, oh, there's another song called Addicted to Love. But by that point, it was a fully formed song,
Mm.
so I didn't really mind. I mean, some artists and musicians say they sort of tend to be quite sort of anxious to not repeat history, but I don't really mind if it's kind of contextually different. It's the context is
Mm.
different, so but yeah, it is. It's a sort of bold move, kind of going with it and going like, oh, okay, we're gonna have the same chorus lyric as a famous song by Robert Palmer.
Mm.
Um, but I hope that our sort of new listeners and people like that will be able to enjoy both tracks in a different way.
I'm
Um,
sure there will. It's quite a common thing to happen as well. Song titles, more than one from bands, and they're just completely different to one another.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's naming stuff is
Yeah.
so hard, and I actually don't put as much thought into it as I probably
Mm.
should. I think you end up kind of going, right, that's the chorus, uh, uh, lyric, and it sounds
Yeah.
interesting, and it kind of reminds you. And it's like, what are you writing down on the set list? It's like, oh, it's that one. So it's like it's going to needs to be punchy, and it needs
Mm.
to just kind of like help you when you're on tour. You're just like glancing down, like which song is next. You need to have a punchy name.
And
Yeah,
of course, "Addicted to Love" that was from Robert Palmer, 80s, mid 80s,
yeah,
say. A lot of your of what I've read in your biog, haven't been influenced by, say, Talk Talk and maybe Bauhaus. Is that right? Some
that's
alternative
correct.
80s band.
Yeah, that's definitely Nick, the bassist, and he's the founding member, and he a lot of the lyrics on the album are from his brain, his lovely brain, and um sort of just to hark to the 80s quickly, and bands like Talk Talk. Nick was actually in a band called Friends of Gavin. He supported REM uh, on tour, um, and he also, I think, he supported the Smiths at one point. So he describes himself as an old punk rocker. So the interesting thing about the horn, I would say, that is different to a lot of bands, is that Nick wrote a song, "The Passion," our first single. He wrote that in the 80s. He wrote, and in fact, he wrote it in the year of my birth. So it's very interesting to sing lyrics that were written while you were being born. And so it's quite a time capsule. Like, it's being able to sort of literally bring some of Nick's 80s cultural writing and sort of his songwriting experience from the 80s, bring it into 2023, which is really quite sort of unique, and special. Yeah.
Just wanted to wrap up shortly, but I have to ask the horn
Yeah.
as well. How did you come up with quickly, like, the band's name?
Yeah, that was Nick. I think he was calling it, Little Horn or Big Horn, or he was going around, and in the studio, he used to walk in to the studio and go, "Hey, it's the horn," and it just sort of stuck. And he's quite cheeky, so he's a cheeky chap, with lots to say and lots of fun stories. And the name does sort of I think elicit fun feelings it's reminiscent. And it's not for everyone. A lot of people we've had people pushing back on it. We've had people loving it. We've had people kind of going, what's going on? And but I think it's sort of stuck in it. I would, I don't know. I'm not very objective on it, but I would say I didn't really like it at the beginning, but now I'm on board, and it's certainly memorable.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it that. Like it's not a forgettable band name,
And
which is good.
crucially, I wanted to ask, where can people find you on social media? Obviously, they can put
Mm,
the Horn the band in, but
yeah, it's just the Horn Band, I think. Yeah, just the Horn Band, and it's on Instagram. Yeah, they're mainly
fantastic.
active there and
So,
TikTok.
so
Yeah,
get my listeners to give you a little follow and see what you do. And you're in
yeah.
concert soon as well. How exciting!
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're supporting Scouting for
Yeah.
Girls, which will be fun, and that's starting on November the 18th. Where are you talking from, Dan,
Yeah, so
today?
I'm here in Birmingham at the moment from the main studios in
Oh,
Birmingham. So I know you.
I'm playing on my birthday on November the 25th. I'm playing in Birmingham. So
Brilliant.
if you come and
Yeah.
come and crush a cup with us if you'd like to.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's a pleasure speaking with you today, Johnny from the Horn. And also, me to say is I'm just going to play your new record now, "Addicted to Love," on my show.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much
It's been
for having me, and thanks for listening.
great speaking with you.
Yeah, you too.